The Weeknd performed an incredible Super Bowl 55 halftime show, a spectacle that left audiences speechless. The Canadian singer gave $7 million out of pocket to the 15-minute performance, which spared no expense. The Las Vegas Strip is recreated in an enormous set. A blue-lit choir introduces the singer as he emerges from a shower of lights between the stands, singing hits like Can't Feel My Face, Starboy, and of course, Blinding Lights. In addition to a backdrop of city lights and billboards, each of his choreographers donned faces full of bandages, a nod, Weeknd says, to the ongoing focus on physical appearances in the music industry. Judging by Tesfaye's repeated acts of philanthropy and his journey to light sobriety, authenticity is an element of his life that rings true to his career, at least when he's not playing his alter ego. When you turn on your car radio, chances are a song by The Weeknd, whose real name is Abel Tesfaye, will be playing. The euphoric pop style unique to Tesfaye's songs has brought him fame around the world, and the singer has no intention of stopping. Tesfaye's streak of good music continues strong, not counting his album Kissland, depending on who you ask. After Hours has been ranked the most listened to R&B album of all time. 86 million people listen to Tesfaye monthly on Spotify. Even better, the artist has his name on 24 songs that have made it to the Billboard 200, a new record for male solo artists. The Weeknd has gone on tour for multiple years in a row, in addition to putting on breathtaking performances at Germany's Lollapalooza and MTV. Now, Weeknd is continuing his production of R&B music while using his platform for good, speaking up for social justice, and donating to charitable causes. With additional side projects like his own HBO show, Tesfaye has quite the CV. Kicking it back in his $70 million Bel Air mansion is likely a great way to end each crazy day. Of course, Tesfaye wasn't always a household music name. From his working-class upbringing, the singer used his talent and passion to become one of the most famous singers worldwide with the help of friends, colleagues, and audience support. From his estranged cooperation with Jeremy Rose to starting his own record company with Lamar Taylor and Sal Slaby, Tesfaye and his edgy alter ego have gone through thick and thin to reach musical stardom. Abel Tesfaye was born on February 16, 1990, in a tiny district in Toronto, Canada. Scarborough, a working-class environment, and much of the small-town culture inspired wide connections. Shortly after he was born, his parents divorced, and he was raised by his Ethiopian mother, Samra, along with his grandmother. Life was tough for the Tesfaye household. Samra was constantly working to maintain their home. As a result, Tesfaye is a mama's boy through and through, though his mother's busy routine always had him wishing he had a brother to play with. As for his father, well, Abel doesn't know much about him apart from his name, but he's sure Makkonen Tesfaye is a great guy from the glimpses he remembers. Nevertheless, Tesfaye believes he was surrounded by inspiration. His family practiced Ethiopian Orthodox, and his grandmother taught him to speak Amharic. Tesfaye voiced his intent to integrate Ethiopian style into his album The Hills. Growing up, he says in a V-Man interview, he listened to Ethiopian singers Tilla Hungeses, Aster Awake, and Mahmoud Ahmed. Tesfaye's first dream, film. To his friends, Tesfaye is considered a cinephile for his intense love of movies. It is perhaps this love of stories and presentation that led him to create such a colorful aesthetic in his work. The first film he ever watched was Jim Carrey's The Mask.
It's party time! P-A-R-T. Why? Because I gotta!
He dropped out of high school during his junior year, apparently leaving with a mattress with his friend Lamar Taylor. The two were off to Parkdale neighborhood, and Tesfaye started working at American Apparel, a department store, while writing music on the side. During an interview with GQ, Tesfaye said that he separates himself from Weeknd, a dark alter ego constantly finding himself in dangerous situations. Tesfaye's history of drugs with a small-town clique inspired his music, but the aesthetic of his work was supposedly the product of him and his first music partner. In Toronto, Ontario, one of the friendliest places on earth, Tesfaye would develop an unexpectedly gritty persona. While working at American Apparel, Tesfaye made connections that would eventually lead him to meet Jeremy Rose, another songwriter. The two would partner up to create and release 2 songs, writing a steady partnership until creative differences forced them apart, with lasting bitterness. At the time of his inception, Weeknd was a way for Tesfaye to separate from his birth name, since the image was essential to R&B music. Now that he's more accepting of his identity, Tesfaye keeps Weeknd but understands the differences between the two of them. When he remixed and re-released his debut songs from the album Trilogy, he credited Deftones for his initial inspiration. It's clear from his early music tastes and Rose's aesthetic that Weeknd's debut was an original combination of unique musical genres. He may have dreamt of film, but his second dream was rapping. According to Rose, Tesfaye always had rap lyrics written on his BlackBerry phone. He wasn't bad at the craft either, his music just happened to take him in another direction. Hearing his song played in the store while other people were listening must have truly been something to behold. Tesfaye recounts how he was anxiously waiting for people's reactions, and to his surprise, they all seemed positive. Him saying, "I was folding clothes there when somebody at the store played the song." Unfortunately, Tesfaye's partnership with Rose did not come with a happy ending. The two were having trouble making compromises with musical style, and new choices had to be made. Tesfaye suggested that Rose could work as his producer, but when Rose realized he wouldn't get paid, he bailed from the affair and the two went their separate ways. Rose rebranded under the name Zodiac, releasing an EP of his own. Meanwhile, a re-release of The Party came from Tesfaye, with additions from other producers. Tesfaye posted his music anonymously on YouTube. With Rose, he managed to produce his first 3 songs, all edgy and euphoric: The Morning, Loft Music, and What You Need. He and Rose produced the songs together, with Rose insisting Tesfaye put on an edgier persona for his music. The songs made up the pair's mixtape House of Balloons, and as luck would have it, they were a hit. Tesfaye released his first 3 songs for free online, catching the attention of no small hip-hop singer. The manager of one and only Drake noticed Tesfaye's songs and shared them, inspiring Drake to post 2 to his blog.
Okay, look, this right here, this little driveway area right here, it's the first place that I ever heard the Weeknd's music right here. Shout out to Oliver, of course, my brother. Oliver played me the Weeknd right here. This is my old building in Toronto. We were parked out here, it was raining right here. And that same guy is selling out the Skydome tomorrow, not the Rogers Center, because we just still call it the Skydome, but that man is selling out the Skydome tomorrow. So I just want anybody that's trying to do this shit to understand, like, I heard this man's music right here for the first time, pouring rain. It's a great life.
A few months later, The Weeknd and Drake would meet in person and would soon collaborate to produce remixed versions of Tesfaye's songs. That same year, Tesfaye teamed up with his colleagues, his manager Cash Ismailian, creative director Lamar Taylor, and producer Sal Slavy to create XO Records, a branch of the Universal Music Group. XO Records have headquarters in Toronto and Los Angeles and host a plethora of other famous artists, including Nav and Cherry 22. Trilogy earned Tesfaye a gold plaque for its success, and popular artists were turning their heads. Tesfaye added 3 additional songs to the list: 28, Valerie, and Till Dawn. Tesfaye continued to produce songs while Zodiac released his own EP, and despite the bitter end to their partnership, Tesfaye found solace among his XO co-founders. To date, Tesfaye has released 5 platinum albums, likely with more to come. Tesfaye would later collaborate with many high-end artists, including Drake and Daft Punk. Following his debut, Tesfaye would release 4 more albums: Kissland, a more experimental album; Beauty Behind the Madness, boasting 25 million sales in the UK; Starboy, with guest appearances from artists like Lana Del Rey and Future; and After Hours, a 3-time platinum winner. Most recently, Weeknd released his 5th album, Dawn FM. Tacked onto each album is a Memento Mori compilation, Latin for Remember That You Have to Die. Weeknd's edginess is far from taking its final breath. While Tesfaye's catchy songs speak for themselves, the artist has amassed prestigious awards for almost every song. The artist has amassed 12.5 million certified album units and 83 million more digital ones. Many of his songs have been nominated and selected for awards from Billboard, BIT, Canadian Radio, and even the European GAFFA for Denmark and Sweden. The whole world loves Tesfaye's music. Writing music and performing seems immensely time-consuming, but it seems Tesfaye still has room for side projects. With immense fame, The Weeknd is bound to collaborate with other companies. Marvel partnered up with the artist to create a clothing line with comic book-style hoodies. A comic issue was released written by Tesfaye himself. He's even partnered with Babe to make his own shoe collection, tailored to fans that can afford luxury sneakers. Meanwhile, the artist knows how to rub shoulders with other celebrities, not to mention peering into their windows through a telescope. Tesfaye is close friends with Jim Carrey. Given their proximity to one another, the two can sneak a peek into each other's houses, talking on the phone beforehand to figure out where they were. The first time Tesfaye and Carrey met in person was a surprise. Since Carrey knew where he lived, he paid a visit to Tesfaye's mansion during a party and got the privilege to hear the then unreleased After Hours album.
Do you ever feel yourself slipping that way?
Yeah, but I have a good team.
They pull you back?
Yeah, always. It's good to have a good team, especially a team that you grew up with.
When was it at its
I feel like everybody kind of loses who they are when they start cutting the people that made them who they are.
Yeah. Did it ever get close to you? Did you ever feel like you were going too far, you couldn't come back? Like, when was it darkest and hardest for you to handle?
Not recently. This was maybe the beginning of the career. But when it comes down to performing and being that person, you need to have that, you need to be strict. I'm not up there lip syncing, you know? I don't got backup dancers, I don't have crazy shit going on. It's all about me and the microphone. And I used to go on stage drunk.
To get through it?
Yeah, nerves.
With such an eventful life, Tesfaye has had to deal with his fair share of struggles. While growing up in Scarborough, Tesfaye had a particularly rough time with drugs and alcohol, a practice he has since become able to maintain. Tesfaye says that, for a while, drugs were a crutch. His teenage years were especially tough. He and his friends would routinely get high on multiple substances, sometimes shoplifting to afford them. He compares his early days to the movie Kids, just without anything related to AIDS. Living a much more comfortable life, The Weeknd has been able to stave off drugs as a coping mechanism to focus on his career. For now, harder drugs like cocaine are completely off the table, but a glass of alcohol now and then is still something he's up for. The overall romance of heavy drinking has long since worn off. Now, Tesfaye's primary coping mechanism is the people around him. Both online and off, the singer continually expresses gratitude for his many fans and his hardworking partners. While many people recognize Tesfaye's talent, there are some cutthroat aspects of stardom that seem to disagree. After Hours is the most popular R&B album in history, but this worldwide, unequivocal success didn't seem to be enough for the Grammys. After his rejection from the award ceremony, Tesfaye claimed to have been rehearsing a performance for weeks before hearing he wasn't nominated. The Grammys responded earnestly to his complaints, but even after the accused secret committees have been taken care of, Tesfaye's boycott is anything but over. The artist was even awarded a trophy for his rap performance in Hurricane, a song by Kanye West, but his mind is made up about the Grammys. Tesfaye will remain distant from the organization and steadfast in his views about the rigged system. Voicing his distaste for award shows isn't the only issue Tesfaye has tackled. Starting from humble beginnings, Tesfaye makes sure his wealth doesn't get away from him. He's constantly giving back to communities and to causes that are important to him. Paying tribute to his hometown, Weeknd donated $500,000 to a Scarborough Emergency Relief Fund. Most recently, Tesfaye has been praised for his part in a TikTok live concert to fund the Equal Justice Project. The project was put together by Wave, an XR company creating the immersive experience. While watching, viewers could vote on how to change the dreamlike setup where a hologram of Weeknd sang older hits and highlights from After Hours. The concert was a huge success. In total, 2 million people hopped into the experience. In general, the social media platform has worked wonders for Tesfaye. But Tesfaye doesn't stop at online appearances. In addition to the concert, The Weeknd donated $350,000 to the cause. One of his producers followed suit. Saul Slavey put in an additional $250,000 donation. In light of racial justice movements across the United States, Tesfaye and his colleagues continue to voice their support for others, as well as pride in their own identities. During the peak of the Black Lives Matter movement, Tesfaye gave $500,000 toward equal rights. Before then, he pitched in $50,000 toward the University of Toronto's program for Ethiopian Studies. The Weeknd has some big plans for the near future as his stardom stays strong, and fans can look forward to the artist branching out from his eclectic albums. Weeknd's film dreams are starting to come true.
Do you trust me? Not really.
The Idol is a series about a club owner who happens to be part of an underground cult. Lily Rose Depp is playing the character's love interest, figuring out the realities of his dark secret. Sam Levinson, the executive producer of Euphoria, is also on board. Tesfaye and the crew spared no expense to get it just right. The 6 episodes were filmed before the project was completely redone. Beforehand, Tesfaye made an appearance in The Simpsons and Robot Chicken and had the opportunity to write and voice an episode of American Dad. In the live-action world, Weeknd debuted in Uncut Gems, followed by an SNL skit. Now, though, Tesfaye has been given the chance to do more than act. On top of his performances, his output of music stays strong as well. His newest album, Dawn FM, is a collaboration between him and Jim Carrey, which simulates a radio show with each song and transition. Carrey even has his own rap number in there. It's good to hear the two are still close friends. Judging on his previous hits, Tesfaye's future 6th album is sure to be made of equal parts experimentation and Ethiopian heritage. Whether you know him from Starboy or Save Your Tears, there is little doubt that fans of indie music and R&B have come across The Weeknd at least once. Starting as a teenage rapper working at American Apparel, Abel Tesfaye became a musical sensation overnight. The Ethiopian-Canadian R&B singer has made immense strides, both in the world of music and beyond. Beauty Behind the Madness songs are likely playing in American Apparels nationwide, without a young Tesfaye waiting anxiously to hear what people think. Thanks to his donations to charities and social justice causes, Tesfaye has used his platform to vocalize the need for racial equality alongside awareness for Ethiopian citizens. As Tesfaye continues to make and break music records, fans wait in anticipation for whatever wild ride he will take them on next. With his upcoming performance in Idol and continuing tour dates, the singer is going strong and sober light to everyone's satisfaction.